Wow, this time you've really outdone yourselves with this stack of material on the human mind.
It's a fascinating topic, isn't it?
Absolutely. Everything from like how our senses work to the mysteries of like reason and will. Get ready, everyone, because we're diving deep into the inner workings of your brain.
I'm ready when you are.
All right, so we've got sources here on like how our nervous system works, how we even form thoughts and concepts, the power of emotions,
Right?
even how to like train your will to be stronger.
Strategies for that.
Yeah. You know, one thing that really struck me, I don't know if you saw this, but like this idea that we might actually have like tiny brains throughout our bodies,
Oh, interesting.
making decisions without the main brain even knowing.
Yeah.
It's like decentralized decision making.
Really challenges our traditional notion of the brain as the sole command center.
Right. Like we think of the brain being in charge, but it's like, whoa, what if there's other stuff going on?
It's a reminder that intelligence might be more widespread in the body than we typically think.
Exactly. And then there was this other concept that I thought was really cool, the idea that our fear of the dark might be an evolutionary hangover
Yes.
from our cave-dwelling ancestors.
Makes you wonder how much of our behavior is still shaped by those ancient instincts.
Right. So are you ready to connect some dots here?
I am. With my background in neuroscience, I think I can help bridge the gap between the biological and the psychological.
Perfect. So by the end of this deep dive, you'll have a deeper understanding of not just how your mind works,
Right.
but also how you can harness its power more effectively. Sound good?
Sounds great. Let's dive in.
Okay. Well, you know, a lot of the sources really emphasize this like intricate connection between the mind and the physical machinery that it relies on. The brain, the nervous system, our senses. It's like a symphony of interconnected systems.
It is. I think one source even had a really interesting analogy. They described the nervous system as like a vast telegraphic network,
Ooh, I like that.
with your sense organs acting as outposts, constantly sending messages to central command, the brain.
It's like this constant communication happening within our bodies all the
Yeah.
time without us even realizing it.
And within that network, you have those tiny brains we talked about, the ganglia,
Yeah,
that can make decisions autonomously.
but delegating.
It is. It's like having a team of highly skilled assistants handling the routine tasks.
Freeing up the brain to focus on the big picture.
Exactly.
Right.
And these reflexes, as we call them, are essential for survival.
Right, like think about it. You touch something hot and you pull your hand away instantly.
Yes.
You don't have to think about it.
That's right.
It just happens thanks to those ganglias near your spinal cord.
Precisely. A brilliant system of self-preservation, but the brain still plays a critical role, right?
Absolutely.
Coordinating, integrating all of this information.
Yeah.
One source broke it down into 3 main parts, each with its own specialized function: the medulla oblongata, the cerebellum, and the cerebrum.
Okay, now that cerebrum, that's where things get really interesting.
That's right.
Right. It's the seat of all of our higher thought processes. Language, problem solving, decision making, planning for the future. And within the cerebrum, the cortex plays a particularly important role.
Especially the prefrontal cortex.
Yes, which is involved in planning, complex behavior, decision making, and working memory.
It's what makes us uniquely human.
Right.
This ability to think abstractly, to reason, to imagine possibilities.
Yeah, but even with all this sophisticated machinery, how do we actually form thoughts?
Well, that's where perception comes in. Think about it. Our senses provide the raw data,
Okay.
the sights, sounds, smells, textures, tastes of the world, and perception is what interprets that data.
Makes it meaningful, connects it back to the object that caused it.
Exactly.
So it's not just sensing the world, it's about understanding it.
right.
Like, imagine looking at a painting. Your eyes detect the colors and the shapes,
Yeah.
but your perception is what tells you, oh, that's a portrait, or those brush strokes, they convey emotion.
That the composition tells a story.
Right. It's the difference between just seeing a bunch of lines and colors and actually recognizing a masterpiece.
And from those perceptions, we start to build concepts.
Yeah, like we compare our perceptions, we find similarities.
And we create mental categories.
Right, to organize the information.
It helps us make sense of the world. Think about a child learning about animals. They start with specific examples. Their pet dog, a bird they saw in the park,
Right.
a fish in an aquarium. But over time, they notice the shared characteristics.
Yeah, the fur, the feathers, the fins,
Yeah.
4 legs, 2
Right.
legs.
Wings, no wings.
Right, and from these observations, they start to form the concept of animal.
Right, it's a mental shortcut
Yeah.
that helps them make sense of the world.
And those concepts can be incredibly complex.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not just like physical characteristics.
Right.
We form concepts about abstract ideas too. Justice, freedom, love. And they're not fixed, they evolve.
As we experience more of the world.
As we have conversations, encounter new ideas.
It's the beauty of the human mind.
Right.
It's constantly learning,
adapting.
refining its understanding of the world.
But you know what's really fascinating to me is how much our emotions actually influence
Oh, absolutely.
those perceptions and concepts.
We tend to think of ourselves as rational beings making decisions based on logic and reason.
Right. We like to think that we're in control.
But one of the sources highlighted a really interesting debate about how emotions actually work.
Oh, tell me more.
It challenges the traditional view that we feel an emotion and then express it physically.
So like, I'm sad and then I cry.
Right. There's a theory called the James Lange theory that proposes it might be the other way around, that our physical reaction actually creates the emotional experience.
So you mean like, I don't frown because I'm sad. I'm sad because I'm frowning.
That's what the theory suggests.
But how does that even work?
Well, the theory suggests that our bodies have specific physiological responses to stimuli.
Like a race?
Sweaty palms when we're afraid.
Yeah.
And our brain interprets these physical sensations as emotions.
Oh, so like, I don't cry because I'm sad? I feel sad because I'm crying.
Exactly.
But doesn't that seem backwards? Like, wouldn't we feel sad first and then cry as a result of that feeling?
It does seem more intuitive that way, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But there's actually quite a bit of research that supports the James Lange theory. And I think many researchers now believe it's not an either-or situation.
Okay.
It's more likely a complex interplay.
Between the mind and the body.
Yes, a feedback loop.
Yeah.
Where physical sensations and emotional experiences influence each other.
So it's like my racing heart makes me feel anxious, and that anxiety then makes my heart race even faster.
Precisely. It can be a vicious cycle.
Or virtuous, I guess, depending on the emotion.
That's right.
But either way, it highlights just how powerful those physical responses can be.
And shaping our emotional experiences.
Right. It's like we're not always as in control of our emotions as we might think.
But that doesn't mean we're powerless. We can learn to manage our emotions, understand the triggers, and develop strategies to cope with challenging situations.
That's a great point, and it leads perfectly into another key aspect of the mind that I wanted to explore with you, the role of the will.
Yeah.
Because even though emotions play a huge role, we do have the capacity to choose our actions.
Absolutely. One source had this thought-provoking point. The will is fueled by desire.
Okay.
We want something, and that wanting propels us to action. But the intellect plays a role too.
So it's like our desires and our rational minds are in a constant dance.
It is. The intellect helps us evaluate and choose between those desires.
But how do we actually train our will to be stronger?
Well, one of the most important things is to understand the different ways our will can be moved to action.
Okay.
The sources highlight 4 main categories: deliberate choice, habit, impulse, and instinct.
Okay, some of those seem a lot easier to control than others. Like, I can probably get better at resisting that impulse to buy another pair of shoes, but how do I change my instincts?
That's a great question. And it's true that some instincts, like the fight or flight response, are deeply rooted in our biology, designed to protect us from danger.
Right, like that's hardwired, right?
It is. But that doesn't mean we're slaves to them. We can learn to manage them more effectively.
So it's not about eliminating the instinct.
Right.
It's about choosing how to respond to it.
Exactly.
Okay, give me an example.
Think about public speaking. For a lot of people, just the thought of standing in front of an audience triggers a cascade of anxiety symptoms.
The racing heart, the sweaty palms.
Yes, the trembling voice. That's the fight or flight response kicking in. It's perceiving that situation as a threat.
Right.
But by understanding what's happening, we can start to reframe our perception.
We can practice like calming techniques.
Exactly, like deep breathing or visualization.
Help regulate our physical response.
And over time, with practice, we can learn to manage that anxiety more effectively.
Wow, so we can actually like rewire our responses.
To those primal instincts.
That's pretty empowering. And it seems like self-awareness is key here.
It is.
Like, the more we understand how our minds work, the better equipped we are to make conscious choices.
Exactly. Training the will is really about cultivating self-awareness by understanding our habitual patterns.
Your impulses, our underlying desires.
Yes, we gain more control over our actions.
An ongoing process, right?
It is. There will be times when we slip up,
We're all human.
but the more we
The
practice,
stronger our will becomes.
exactly. It's like building mental stamina.
I love that analogy, mental stamina.
The more we exercise our willpower, the better we become at resisting temptations and making choices that align with our goals.
But let's be real, like, we're all human. There are going to be times when we give in to those impulses.
Of course.
I know I've definitely had my fair share of moments where my willpower crumbled in the face of a delicious dessert.
We all have.
But the key is to not beat ourselves up about it, right?
That's right.
It's about recognizing those moments
Learning from them.
and recommitting to our goals. And that's where mindfulness comes in.
Exactly.
It's about paying attention to our thoughts and feelings without judgment.
And starting to notice those triggers that lead us astray.
It's like becoming more aware of those internal conversations we have, those justifications, those rationalizations.
When we're about to give in to temptation.
And once we're aware of them, then we can start to challenge them.
Exactly. And that's where the real power of the will lies.
In our ability to choose even when it's difficult.
Yes, and that ability, that mental stamina is essential for personal growth and fulfillment.
I completely agree. And it makes me wonder if we can train our will to be stronger. Can we also train our minds to be more creative, more insightful, more compassionate?
What a great question.
Is there like a limit to what we can achieve with our minds?
That's a question to ponder. I think it speaks to the boundless potential of the human mind.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive. From the basic mechanics of the brain to the power of emotions and the role of the will.
But there's still so much more to explore.
There is.
Well, listeners, buckle up, because in part 2 of our deep dive into the human mind, we're going to look even deeper into the power of the will and how you can use it to achieve your goals.
I'm excited.
Stay tuned.
Yes.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the mysteries of the human mind.
It's fascinating to delve into these intricate workings of our thoughts, feelings, and actions.
It really is. We've uncovered so much about how our brains function, how we construct concepts, the immense influence of emotions, and the significance of strengthening our will. But, as we touched upon in the last part, there's still so much we haven't grasped about consciousness itself.
That's the beauty of the human mind. It's this boundless realm of wonder and exploration, always beckoning us to learn more.
Before we venture too far into those uncharted territories, though, I want to circle back to this idea of training our will. You mentioned earlier that it's about understanding those different ways our will can be moved to action.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on those categories a little bit more?
Sure. So we've already touched upon them briefly. Deliberate choice, habit, impulse, and instinct.
Okay.
Each of these plays a crucial role in shaping our behavior.
Some of those seem easier to manage than others, though. Like, I might be able to resist the urge to buy another pair of shoes, but how do I alter my instincts? Those feel so deeply embedded within us.
It's a great question. And while we might not be able to fundamentally change our basic instincts, we can certainly learn to manage them.
Okay.
Take the fight or flight response, for example.
Right. That's like a primal instinct.
It is. It's a survival mechanism. It's hardwired into our nervous system.
Yeah. Your heart pounds, adrenaline surges, your body's preparing to either confront a threat or flee from it.
Right.
It's pretty powerful.
It is. But by understanding how this instinct operates, we can learn to recognize its physical manifestations and choose a more appropriate response. So instead of allowing fear to take over, we can practice calming techniques, such as deep breathing or mindfulness.
So it's not about suppressing the instinct.
Right.
It's about choosing how to react to it.
Precisely. And this principle can be applied to many aspects of life. By becoming aware of our habitual patterns, our impulses, our underlying desires, we gain greater control over our actions.
That makes a lot of sense. So training the will is essentially about cultivating self-awareness.
It is.
The more we comprehend the workings of our minds, the better equipped we are to make conscious choices.
Hit the nail on the head.
And it's crucial to remember that training the will is an ongoing journey. There are going to be instances when we succumb to our impulses or let our emotions dictate our actions.
Of course, we're all human.
We're bound to make mistakes.
Indeed. But the key is to learn from those experiences and continue practicing.
The more we exercise our will,
The stronger it becomes.
I like that analogy, mental stamina.
Mental stamina. It perfectly encapsulates the concept.
Yeah.
And just like physical stamina, mental stamina requires effort to develop.
But the rewards are well worth it.
Absolutely.
So to summarize, by grasping those different ways our will can be influenced, by cultivating self-awareness, and by consistently practicing conscious decision-making,
Yes.
we can fortify our willpower and become masters of our own minds.
Well articulated.
But, we can't talk about the mind without talking about consciousness itself.
Right.
What does it truly mean to be aware, to experience the world, to be, you?
Consciousness. The ultimate enigma.
It's a question that has baffled philosophers and scientists for centuries.
How does mere matter give rise to the subjective experience of being?
It's truly mind-boggling.
It is.
And, all these sources that we have, they delve deep into the workings of our brain, how we think, how we feel, how we act.
Right.
But none of them truly tackle the question of what consciousness is.
It remains a frontier of scientific exploration.
It does.
There are many theories, but no definitive answers. Right. Some believe that consciousness is an emergent property of complex systems like the brain.
Okay.
Others suggest it's a fundamental aspect of reality itself.
It makes you realize how much we still don't know about our own minds.
It's humbling in a way.
It is, and that's what makes this exploration so captivating, right? We've examined the mechanics of thought, but the mystery of consciousness itself persists.
It's something to ponder as you go about your day.
It's like we've charted the entire city, but we haven't yet discovered the key to the secret garden hidden within its heart.
What a beautiful analogy.
Maybe that secret garden is best explored not through scientific instruments, but through introspection.
Through quiet contemplation of our own inner experience.
Perhaps. Well, listeners, we've traversed a vast landscape in this deep dive into the human mind.
We have.
But as we've just discussed, there are still uncharted territories awaiting our exploration.
Yes.
In part 3, we're going to delve into some ways you can continue this journey independently. Would you join me for this final leg of our adventure?
Always eager for new discoveries. Let's continue our exploration.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into the human mind.
It's been quite a journey exploring the intricate workings of our thoughts, feelings, and actions, hasn't it?
It really has. We've learned so much about how our brains operate, how we even build concepts, the power of emotions, and that whole idea of training our will. But like you mentioned in the last part, there's still so much that we don't know, especially about consciousness itself.
It's true. That's the beauty of the human mind, I think. It's a
Yeah.
constant source of wonder and exploration.
So for all our listeners out there who are now feeling inspired to continue this exploration on their own,
Yeah.
what advice do you have for them? Where should they go from here?
Well, we talked a lot about the science of the mind, but one of the most valuable tools we have for understanding our own minds is introspection.
Oh, interesting.
That ability to turn our attention inward and observe our own thoughts and feelings.
So it's like having a built-in laboratory for studying the mind.
Exactly.
But I think for a lot of people, the idea of sitting quietly and just observing their thoughts might feel a little daunting or even a little boring.
It can be, but there are ways to make it more approachable. Mindfulness meditation is a great practice for cultivating that inner awareness.
Okay.
It's simply about paying attention to the present moment, to your breath, to your senses, without judgment.
There are a lot of resources available online and in local communities if people want to get started.
There are.
Mindfulness and meditation are definitely having a moment right now.
They are.
But what about those who are looking for something a bit more active? Are there other ways to explore the mind?
Absolutely. Reading books and articles about psychology, neuroscience, and philosophy can open up a whole world of insights.
Okay.
And don't underestimate the power of conversations.
Ooh, interesting.
Talking to friends, family, even strangers about their experiences and perspectives can really challenge your assumptions.
And broaden your understanding. I love that. Sometimes just hearing someone else articulate an experience that you've had can be so illuminating. It's like, yes, that's exactly how I feel, but I never knew how to put it into words.
It can be so validating, right?
Yes.
And don't forget about the arts. Music, literature, painting, dance. These can all be powerful tools for exploring the depths of human emotion and experience.
Because they allow us to tap into those parts of ourselves that we might not be able to access through purely rational thought.
Exactly.
So there really is a path for everyone, whether it's through quiet reflection, intellectual exploration, or creative expression.
Yes, so.
The key is to just keep that curiosity alive, to keep asking questions.
And to keep seeking a deeper understanding of yourselves and the world around you.
Well said. We've reached the end of our deep dive into the human mind. I hope you've enjoyed the journey as much as we have.
Me too.
It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you. And remember, listeners, the mind is this vast and intricate landscape, and there's always something new to discover. So keep diving deep, keep exploring, keep learning, and most importantly, keep wondering.
Until next time.
Bye, everyone.